Welcome back to our virtual pinball machine build. Now that the structure is all in place, we're going to work on the wiring. Today's video might be kind of boring for some, as we're going to be discussing in depth how I wired the inside of my cabinet. As with everything else in these videos, I probably didn't do this in a widely accepted way, but I did it in a way that worked for me. Let's get right to it. So, because of the type of buttons I used, I chose the iPack Ultimate I/O board to control my LEDs and inputs. This board will take input from the RGB buttons we installed in the last video and convert them into keyboard strokes that the computer can understand. To make things easier on me, I numbered the input pins from 1 to 39. The board will also allow me to control the RGB colors of the buttons using the LED pins on the sides. Starting with the flippers and nudges, here is how I connected my buttons. There's no real rhyme or reason why I connected them this way, it's just the way it ended up working out. As you can see here, the left nudge is connected to LED pins 79, 80, and 81, as well as input pin 9. The left flipper is LED pins 7, 8, and 9, and input pin 11. The black wire is the ground daisy chain harness that I will show later in this video. I won't bore anyone going pin by pin, but here are the rest of the connections. The right side flippers and nudge, front nudge, the front aux buttons, and the flashers, which we'll discuss later. The start, launch, and coin buttons were wired a little differently. They are not LEDs, and I could not get them to work on the iPack 5-volt power outputs. The inputs are hooked up the same as the other buttons. So for power, I used some external USB boards that I had laying around from a previous arcade button project. Okay, now that we've seen it all on paper, let's go see what it looks like for real. First things first, I had to make a mount for the control board to sit on inside the cabinet. I used some spare 1/2-inch plywood that was left over. I marked the spots for the standoffs, and pre-drilled the holes. Then screwed in the standoffs, and then we attached the board to the mount. And done. Now, to help tame the large amount of wiring that is going to be in this cabinet, we're going to need some help with organization. The buttons have the LED wires already attached. I like to use these screw-down zip ties to create channels for wires to run through. Then, we start organizing the LED wires and running them through the channels. I used 4-wire extension cables since the LED wires are only about a foot long. I have links to everything used in this video in the description. Originally, I had planned to mount the control board at the back of the cabinet, so you can see me running wires to the back. I changed my mind as usual a little later, and moved it to the front. Next up, we get our mount into the cabinet. And install a USB hub so that I can plug a keyboard and mouse in if necessary. And finally, it's time to wire it all up. I did most of the wiring outside of the cabinet because there's just more room to work. You may also notice here that what you see in the video doesn't always match the diagrams from earlier in the video. The input connections didn't change, but the LED connections changed quite a bit. This was such a frustrating process for me that 1, it didn't get video documented as well as I had hoped, and 2, things changed a lot from my original wiring plan, based on a lot of factors. It really ended up as a feel it out as I go kind of project. So anyway, we're connecting LEDs here. You can see the input wires bundled off to the side. After I finished setting the LEDs, I attached the board to the mount inside the cabinet. As you can see in the pictures, I really recommend labeling all of your cables. This made it much easier when I decided to change everything around, and if you ever need to do any troubleshooting. Like I said, I didn't video document the actual connections well, since it turned out to be very frustrating. Here, you can see how I wired my 5-volt buttons. The LED buttons are a little different. You can see the LED wires are already attached, red, green, blue, and yellow for power. And then you have 2 terminals, one for input comm and the other for input ground. Anyway, enjoy this clip of me wiring a couple of the buttons. The wiring process was a mess, but I think it cleaned up pretty nice in the end. The last part we'll cover in this video is the coin door. We get that installed into the cabinet and secured. Followed by wiring up the coin buttons. And installing the lock. We ended up going with a much shorter lock set in the end. Well, that's it for today. Join us next time when we wrap this project up with the finishing touches. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit that notification bell to make sure you see the conclusion.